Hello friends and welcome back to lesson number 6. We are studying Indian agriculture and this is the third video of this particular lesson. In this lesson friends, we are studying about the Indian agriculture and we started with the topic of cropping patterns. Right, in our country, what are the different cropping patterns, what factors affect cropping patterns, and why is it important to study this. This is a very important topic for UPSC exam. In this particular video, we are going to study about the historical evolution of the cropping pattern in India. Right, so right from the independence, that is after 1947, during 1950s, 60s, till today, how cropping patterns have evolved in our country, because Indian agriculture has grown a lot in the last 75 years. And we are going to see how it has evolved, what are the different factors that contributed to this evolution. So let us start. Cropping patterns in India have evolved significantly through different historical phases. So when we study this historical evolution, we divide them into various phases of evolution that we are going to see here. And why it has evolved: due to changes in technology, policy of the government, infrastructure development, economic priorities of the government. That we know that we used to have a planned economy kind of model where we used to have 5 years plans. So there these 5 years plan used to set the economic priorities of the government, also closely linked to the policies, and also the ecological realities, the environmental realities of our country, because the groundwater, the climate, soil conditions, various other factors, they change over time. So these are the various things because of which the cropping pattern has evolved over a period of time. Now broadly, this evolution can be divided into 3 distinct phases. So when we study this evolution, we divide it into 3 phases actually, where we see different kinds of developments. So the one is the period before the Green Revolution. That the Green Revolution was brought in 1960s. So before Green Revolution, that is from independence till 1960s, there was a different kind of evolution in cropping patterns. Then during the Green Revolution area, of course, the Green Revolution brought a considerable changes to Indian agriculture, like adoption of high yield variety seeds, then chemical fertilizers, so many different things. So this period started in 1960s up to 1980s, it continued. And after the reforms, economic reforms of 1991, so loosely we talk about those reforms as post-reform era, which happened after 1991. Okay, so first let us study about the pre-Green Revolution era, that is before Green Revolution. Okay, what happened before Green Revolution? What were the characteristics of this era? What was the characteristics of cropping pattern or Indian agriculture during this time? You must be knowing that initially it was subsistence farming, hand to mouth, right? So there was widespread poverty. The land was concentrated in the hand of a few big landlords, and the distribution of land was uneven. So some people were extremely poor, landless, or very small patch of land they used to hold. Most of it was subsistence farming. Subsistence farming meaning that farmers used to produce enough to consume themselves and their families. Okay, for self-consumption, they used to do farming, and not for selling in the market, rather than marketing surplus. So this was the characteristics of this time. Second was low input use. So the seeds that were used were traditional, which were not high yielding. Organic manure was used, which is now a positive thing actually, but the production was obviously low because chemical fertilizers are more effective in increasing the production than organic fertilizers. Bullock plows, so there was no machinery. Rain-fed irrigation. Irrigation was also very, very less. So people used to depend on rainfall, on the monsoon. So these were the characteristics. Crop diversity. There was a wide variety of cereals grown, pulses, millets, oilseeds, and vegetables during this period, because as per the need from different regions, different agroclimatic zones, the diversity of crop was there, and also depending on the cultural and traditional factors. Because see, for example, in North India, people usually prefer eating roti, wheat roti, so they would grow wheat. Whereas in South India, Eastern India, they prefer eating rice, so they used to traditionally grow rice. So these things used to affect the production also. There was no dominant cropping system. Crops were selected based on local soil, rainfall, and dietary habits. So cropping system was not affected by external factor as such. Okay, it was mostly local factors. Government policy and other things were not so dominant. Now, what were the common crops grown during this period? Cereals were grown like rice, jawar, bajra, ragi in different regions. Pulses and millets like chickpea, lentils, etc. were also grown. Oilseeds were grown, mustard, sesame, groundnut. Cash crops like cotton, sugarcane in very limited belts but not dominant. Okay, so these were some of the crops that were grown. Regional examples being in Eastern India, rice and jute, we know Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh. So rice, paddy is grown, jute is also grown in Odisha and West Bengal. South India, mostly millets, pulses, oilseeds. North India, mixed crop, wheat, barley, gram, etc. Now, what were the limitations of this period? Low productivity, as I told you, it was traditional agriculture. Frequent famines due to dependence on monsoon. So if the rainfall fails, the crop would fail and people would not have anything to eat also. So famines used to be widespread. Minimal market linkages and commercialization. Food grain shortages led to imports under the PL 480 from the USA. So PL 480 is basically was a scheme of the United States government whereby it used to give food supplies to the country where food shortages were faced. So this was the time before Green Revolution, initial years after our independence. Now let us come and see what happened during the Green Revolution era, how these things changed during the 1960s, 70s and also 80s. What were the triggering factors for Green Revolution? The 1943 Bengal famine, also before the independence, it opened our eyes because so lakhs of people died during that famine, and we thought that we should be food self-sufficient. And if we are not food self-sufficient, then we'll never grow as a country, because nutrition is an important factor for a country to grow. There were repeated food crises also after independence during the pre-Green Revolution era. Import dependence under PL 480. So United States government could arm twist us because they used to give us food supplies. So they could make us listen to their bargain and their commands, because we are dependent on them for our food supplies. So we wanted to become self-sufficient, right? Self-reliant, Atmanirbhar during that time, as at least for food. Recommendations by Food Grains Policy Committee of 1965 that we should bring about changes in technology, irrigation for our farmers so that we grow our agrarian sector. Institutional support from organizations like ICAR, Fertilizer Corporation of India, NABARD. So these institutions were also developed and they gave a lot of support for development of Indian agriculture. What were the core features? So we saw that these are the triggering factors. So these are the triggering factors for Green Revolution. Now we have to bring about a change in our Indian agriculture. Now, what were the core features of these changes? High yielding variety seeds, right? So previously there were traditional seeds. Now we adopted HYV seeds, hybrid seeds, initially for wheat and later for rice also. Chemical inputs were also given, like fertilizers, urea, DAP, pesticides were used, which again increased the productivity. Irrigation expansion, canal irrigation and electric tube wells were also developed in various parts of the country, so that water is an important factor for agriculture, and year-round irrigation systems were developed. Mechanization, like tractors were used instead of bullock plows, traditional instruments, threshers, combine harvesters. So these were the various machinery that was also brought into use. Price incentives, minimum support price were announced, MSP, procurement by Food Corporation of India. so that a guaranteed price is given to the farmer so that their incomes will increase and they will be incentivized to grow a particular crop. Impact on cropping pattern, how it impacted. So shift to monoculture. Previously people used to grow whatever they wanted, whatever they needed, like rice, sometimes pulses, sometimes oil seeds. Now there was shift to monoculture, meaning one single crop on huge patches of land. Wheat in Punjab and Haryana, paddy in eastern UP and Andhra Pradesh, Odisha also. Then decline in crop diversity, pulses, millets and oil seeds saw you reduced acreage, right? So crop diversity reduced because now people used to grow only rice and wheat. Cropping systems changes. Rice wheat system became dominant in Indo-Gangetic plains. So in the North India, Punjab, Haryana, UP, rice wheat system dominated. Rice in Kharif, wheat in the Rabi. So because of high yielding variety, chemical fertilizers and lot of incentives, especially the MSP by the government, it brought about a change in the cropping system. And focus on cereals. Government procurement and PDS favored rice and wheat. As I have told you that procurement, that is announcement of MSP, and after announcement of MSP, government also procures, means directly buys it from the farmers. So procurement focuses on rice and wheat even today. So that is why there is a guaranteed price that will be given to the farmers, guaranteed income. So people prefer growing rice and wheat. Examples of this phase, how it changed cropping pattern in Punjab. Area under wheat rose from less than 10% in 1950s to over 40% by 1980s. So see, people now started growing wheat in Punjab. In Andhra Pradesh, high yielding variety rice replaced traditional millets like ragi and jawar. So these were some of the dominant or important noteworthy changes that happened during this period. Ecological and regional imbalance also happened, obviously, because see, if there is monoculture, diversity is not there, lot of chemical fertilizers are being used. So ecological damage will also happen, imbalance will happen. Regional imbalance will also happen because some states they adopted these high yielding varieties, whereas it did not become successful in other states. So green revolutions benefits were restricted to northwestern India due to better irrigation, large land holdings and government focus. It was not so much in the eastern India, not so much in the southern India also. Neglected regions were eastern states, rain-fed regions of Deccan and tribal belts. So these were the neglected regions at that time. So there was a regional imbalance also. Post-reform era, this is the third phase, that is after 1991. Now, why do we have this as a special, phase of evolution of cropping patterns? We'll see here. Now, what was the context? Economic liberalization, meaning it opened our economy, it liberalized our economy. Licensing Raj was reduced. WTO, World Trade Organization, and globalization happened. India joined WTO in 1995. Now, external rules, guidelines also are imposed on our country. So just keep this in mind. This is the background. Rising urban demand and export potential. So people from urban areas are now also demanding a lot of food stuff. So depending on that demand, cropping pattern will obviously change, because in urban areas people will prefer more nutritious food. They will ask for more vegetables, more fruits, right, and more milk based products. So depending on that, the farmers also changed their cropping patterns or the crops that the farmers used to grow. Export potential. So now since our economy is opened, globalized, so lot of external demand also affected Indian agriculture. So for example, if there is a lot of demand for Indian mangoes, so obviously farmers will start growing mangoes. If there is a demand for Indian onions, so farmers start growing onions, because there is a lot of export demand now. Environmental concerns and agrarian distress also were the factors. Now, what are the new trends during this period? Diversification of crops happened again. Shift from food grains to horticulture, like growing of fruits, vegetables, floriculture, flowers, medicinal plants. Greater area under fruits, mangoes, bananas, citrus fruits, and vegetables like onions and tomatoes. States like Maharashtra and Karnataka promoted horticulture clusters, because that in Maharashtra onions, oranges, then mangoes, strawberries, these are some of the horticultural crops that are world famous. Similarly, Karnataka also incentivized a lot of horticultural products. So these were some of the important changes that happened during post-reform era. Growth of commercial and export-oriented crops. What happened during this period? Basmati rice, cotton, soybean, sugarcane for export and processing. So again, since there was export demand for these crops, farmers started growing these. Rise of contract farming in floriculture and organic produce. Organic produce demand comes from high level, high society. They are ready to pay high price, but now they want organic produce. So demand for organic produce also increased, and that is why some of the farmers got incentivized to grow organic crops. Expansion of non-traditional areas. Rice cultivation in Punjab and Haryana due to procurement incentives. Cotton and soybean in central India, Vidarbha and Madhya Pradesh due to BT cotton and irrigation. So in non-traditional areas also, the crop started growing. For example, rice started growing in Punjab and Haryana, where previously only wheat used to be grown. But because of procurement incentives and other incentives, farmers in Punjab and Haryana started growing rice also during your Kharif season, and in winter they used to grow wheat. Similarly, cotton and soybean in Vidarbha, Madhya Pradesh due to BT cotton. So this is a genetically modified cotton which has high yield, low pest attack, and also availability of irrigation facilities. Then revival of millets and pulses. These are the recent trends, because millets considered to be a healthy food like ragi, jawar, bajra, high fiber, low glycemic index. So these are some of the benefits that we always hear, that people on dieting, they prefer eating jawar roti rather than wheat roti. Pulses also for protein, for vegetarian people, for protein purposes. So government schemes like National Food Security Mission, International Year of Millets, 2023 it was declared. PM Kusum, this is the Yojana for solar pumps in installation in the agriculture, for sustainable agriculture. Nutrition sensitive policies leading to inclusion of nutri cereals like jawar, bajra, ragi. Then impact of urbanization and climate changes. A lot of urban areas now, they start demanding vegetables, flowers, dairy based products. So dairy based cropping systems like poultry farm, goatry, etc., that used to start happening in peri-urban areas, right? So villages which were near urban areas, which were near the cities, they started growing more of vegetables, flowers, etc., rather than traditional rice and wheat. In drought prone areas, shift to short duration and drought resistant crops also was seen. Then regional specialization, so emergence of crop clusters. For example, cotton proliferated or grew tremendously in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Telangana. Spices in Kerala, pepper, cardamom, Sikkim, organic ginger. Then tea and coffee in Assam, Darjeeling, Nilgiris, Kodagu. So these are some of the important changes that happened in the post-reform era actually. So during this post-reform era, we saw that during the green revolution that happened, that it shift to monoculture and lot of ecological and regional imbalances. So during this post-reform era, these things changed a little bit. Like monoculture was shifted to diversification of crops. Then people again started growing organic products, and regional specialization happened. Rather than the entire country growing one crop, people started growing different crops in different regions depending on what incentives are available and what demand is available. Also the globalization that happened, that also brought about export demand in the country. So cropping patterns also depended on those things. Now we see that rice wheat cropping system in India, it got succeeded rather than other cropping pattern. So why it got succeeded? What were the successes and challenges? Let us see. Now what were the different factors behind these success? First, let us analyze those. One is obviously the agroclimatic suitability. So rice wheat were agroclimatically suitable, meaning the climatic conditions like soil, rainfall, humidity, etc., temperature, etc. So all those were suitable for growing rice and wheat in our country. Sequential availability of warm, wet kharif and cool, dry rabi seasons. High yielding variety seeds availability. Both rice and wheat responded well to these HYVs. Irrigation infrastructure was also available, like canal networks, groundwater pumping ensured double cropping, right? So groundwater pumps, electric pumps were also available. Then most important factor was MSP, minimum support price policy, and also the procurement policy of the government. So government guaranteed returns for both the crops. That is why it got succeeded. Mechanization also helped a lot, like combined harvesters, threshers. It reduced the need for the human labor. Fertilizers and input access were also there. Green Revolution input subsidies and support services were available. That's why these were some of the contributing factors to the success of rice wheat system in our country. What were the emerging problems? Why it became a bane? It led to monoculture. We saw that a lot of ecological damage and regional imbalance also. So what were some of the problems that were caused because of this rice wheat system? Despite the initial success of rice wheat system, the rice wheat system became ecological and economically unsustainable, right? As I have explained to you before, because of soil degradation. Continuous cropping without rotation has led to loss of micronutrients and soil structure. Excessive use of fertilizers is also one of the reasons. Then water crisis. Paddy requires high water inputs, almost 5,000 liters per kg of production. Punjab and Haryana now face severe groundwater depletion. Monoculture risks. So since there is growth of only one crop, so loss of crop biodiversity, increased vulnerability to pest and climate shocks. So those who are into biology and microbiology, they know that if there is monoculture, only single crop is there, so vulnerability to pest attack increases more, and also climate shocks, because if the crop gets damaged, the entire village or the entire district, entire state will suffer. Then stubble burning, another problem. Short window between rice harvest, because rice is grown in kharif, right? And after it is harvested, then immediately in winter people will grow wheat during the rabi season. So there is a very short window between these two seasons. So short window between the rice harvest and the wheat sowing season leads to burning of paddy straw, causing severe pollution. So we see that that Delhi air pollution problem is also because of this, because people don't have enough time to remove those paddy stubble from the field and then again grow the wheat. So what they do is they will burn it, so that it provides kind of fertilizer also, organic fertilizer also to the soil, and at the same time the labor cost is reduced. Declining margins. Cost of cultivation is rising faster than the MSP, especially for rice. Another important problem. Overuse of chemicals, nitrate pollution and pesticide accumulation in soil and food chain. Also water pollution is happening, groundwater getting polluted, rivers, canals, small streams getting polluted because of overuse of chemicals. So the very success of rice wheat system has led to ecological stress, environmental problems, and it is signaling a need for diversification towards a sustainable system. So I hope friends you have understood about the historical evolution of cropping pattern in our country and why the rice wheat system got succeeded. We saw that various factors are responsible for that, including government factors, climatic factors, availability of technology, also what people got as incentives from the government as well as through various institutions. So those factors also were important, but at the same time how it became a bane for our country, how it became a problem, that also we see. So anything that has good sides also has negatives, also has some drawbacks, so that needs to be understood as policymakers, as administrators. Okay, so in the next video we'll continue with Indian agriculture. Thank you.